I can't wait for the day these end up in Goodwill and people are buying them up wondering, where's the other half of the robot? Since random review's been kind of quiet lately, I figured we'd get back to things with the biggest toy I can currently think of. I mean, outside of Triptychon. I mean, besides that one, the other big toy that just came out in Transformers Titans Return. This is Overlord, based on the Master Force lead villain that never came to the US before now. And we're starting off in his base mode because it's the mode I most want to get out of the way as fast as possible. So as you can see, it is basically his robot mode legs with his upright jet mode. A couple parts swapped around. This does require a little bit of part swapping. Nothing terrible. And it's a decent approximation of what his G1 base mode looked like. No ramps, unfortunately, which would have made this thing look way better, but also required a lot more parts and part forming, which we don't generally like, so I can accept this reasonable facsimile. He's got plenty of little pegs here, 6 going all the way across there for Titan Masters to stand upon, as well as the one up top, which is currently being used by his own Titan Master. It's not a bad little base mode. I've seen far worse in the annals of Transformers, and he does have these hinge sections here, 2 in the front, 1 in the back, where he can connect to other Titan Return bases and Titan-class figures. So, always nice to see them working in that little bit of extra gimmickry, at least making the bases look like one huge base, if you so choose. So, yeah, I've seen worse in this line. Let's go ahead and get to his actual modes. I will go ahead and just let you know, there are modes here that you can fan mode in. This toy does leave a lot to imagination, but we're not going to get into those simply because, well, I don't know how to do them. No, we're going to stick to official modes here for the sake of keeping things correct. And it starts by trying to get this waste out of... I've always had trouble getting this thing out. It's really stiff on mine. You know, the whole crux of how this toy transforms depends on the slide piece that's in the core, but if it's yours particularly tight, it can get a little bit finicky to actually get removed. Okay, so that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and move everything back into its proper positioning. We're going to go ahead and flip those sections out, and this is a really quick transformation, just flipping these things over. Oh, yeah, we can't forget to put the hinges back into their place, because that would look really weird on a white and blue and turquoise tank. Wouldn't want to look weird in a blue and turquoise and white tank. So that's as simple as that. Just go ahead and fold the legs over, plug the cannon in, and already we have the tank mode. Well, half of him has the tank mode, and again, we are looking at a pretty good approximation of the original. So, yeah, it's a very strangely colored tank for the sake of the robot mode, but hey, it's not a bad little bruiser, is it? Nice traditional shape, not an H-tank, which they resort to way too much, I think. Traditional barrel, everything looks good. I like the sculpting going on. You got little guns up top, no hatch outside of, the obvious compartment where a Titan Master can ride along. You also do have the residual pegs from base mode lining up the back, and another one here at the top. So that's space for 6 on this dinky little tank. That's pretty good. You see on the front, they went with stickers, unfortunately, for Decepticon logos, so they look a little bit more traditional, which I guess you might want on a character like this, but at the same time, you have to be a little bit careful you don't rub anything off, because those are not fun. Those are rather cheaply done. At least the treads are fully painted in, so you have that going for it. Yeah, not too bad. Turret does not rotate, and you do have fake wheels there at the bottom, so he does have a little bit of rolling to him. So that's the tank mode. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the jet mode, which will require us to remove this, rotate it around, and then plug it back on. That's our part forming. And then we just kind of flatten all of that up that form the front ledge of the base into the back side. And just like that, we already have our jet mode. which is very SR-71, which I'm very much in favor of. I love this jet in the first place, and now we've made it space age. Again, it's a little bit oddly colored. The thrusters are purple and white, but that just goes in with his G1 look, so no harm, no foul there. What I like is that the robot mode doesn't have a whole lot of black to it, but obviously very, very black vehicle mode here. That's kind of a neat little color change. You can see we have landing struts on the bottom, and the hinge for the base mode kind of acts as the rear, so he does stand relatively nicely without scraping up anything on the bottom. There are a few little gaps with this mode. I mean, for starters, you got more stickers going on here, as well as these, which can be a little bit off-center because of how the arms are cut. But on mine in particular, you'll notice that yeah, the slide doesn't really hold in on this side, which is annoying. But that's a mileage may vary thing. Also, more stickering on the tail fins here. So, on the front, we have the Decepticon sigil, again stickered, and then translucent orange cockpit, which can be opened up to reveal the canopy inside, where you can house a Titan Master for flying around. Now, this is an interesting thing because it's the same compartment from the jet, from the base mode, so it works both ways. And just in case you can't get into either one of them, because sometimes it's hard to get a fingernail under one of these little things, the front does completely pop off very painlessly in order to easily access. That's some good foresight by Hasbro and Takara. Good job. Or maybe just made them easier to move in the first place, but hey, as long as it's not a lasting issue. Aside from that, the molding is quite nice. I like the sharp points in the thrusters. I like the narrow wing profile that gives him more of a space age look, and I really, really like all of the tech greeble that we have molded in. Lots of little panels and things to make him look like a very serious flyer. Again, Titan Master pegs, 1, 2, 3, 4, as well as the cockpit. So we're looking at 11 across both of the vehicles. That's quite impressive. What I'm not a fan of is the fact that you have 2 vehicles, 2 cockpits, but only 1 Titan Master, which is kind of unfortunate. That Titan Master is Dreadnought. It's a lot of new molding, but basically the torso, I believe, is similar as a remold of someone else. Can't remember who offhand, but we do have, your standard Titan Master. At the very least, the head is completely colored and painted, which is a significant improvement. So Dreadnought here is kind of based on the original Overlord's God Master Giga, although the paint is kind of loosely based on that. It makes for a decent little Titan Master with your usual Titan Master stuff. Head's ball jointed, arms are ball jointed, but it's mostly up for forward and back, and then the hinge that creates the bend at the knees and the hips. So there you go. So like always, we're going to go into robot mode first by flipping the head and getting it ready to go. This is an interesting toy to transform, I'll tell you that. It's rather simple, but definitely has its unique qualities. So we're going to go ahead and get these flipped back out. It's going to look a little bit familiar, but yeah, it's kind of how it works. Come on, unpeg. There we go. Flip around, flip those out, make sure they click into place. Feet open up like so. This is a nice thing about him. It's a leader class toy, but it's also very faithful to how his G1 toy worked. And he didn't try to reinvent the wheel on this guy, which leads you to a very quick and efficient transformation with just a few new things just to kind of keep you interested. So that goes to the side. I'm going to go ahead and fold that down and fold the peg out just for future. And now for here, yeah, he's pretty much, he's quite close to done right there. I'll go ahead and pull the arms out. They slide out, which they try to avoid these days, but I don't think you could have on this toy. So flip those out. We're going to go ahead and flip these panels down. You don't have to. You can leave them out like that, but it's a little bit, I know, I find it a little bit weird just to have that hanging off the side. We will, however, flip the wings down, so those are out of the way. Also, these clip into the chest, so you won't have to unclip them in order to get your articulation out. Fold this big chunk to the back, rotate the head around. Now we are ready to insert Titan Master. Simple like so. And with that, we have but to Voltron them together. By Voltron, I mean just stick one to the other. That's really not how Voltron works, now is it? That is going to give us our finished leader toy, which is way too big for my current framing. Overlord. Very towering, very menacing looking Decepticon. Long denied a US figure outside of a little PVC that no one could actually find because who actually stocked those for very long? So yes, this is the leader of the Master Force series of Decepticons, and he is looking very, very cool, very, very imposing. I'm going to take a look at his head, of course. It's a little bit sunken in as a result of the gimmick. It's kind of hard for me to get a good look at his face, and I'm sorry for washing him out on the camera. I want to make sure you can see his eyes poking through there and really get a good look. He is quite the Decepticon. I really like the look of him. I kind of like that inner black look to the helmet. I like the layered effect that it gives. Very, very cool. I'm really, really happy with how this guy came out so far, if you couldn't tell already. So yeah, he keeps a lot of his G1 appearance. The sculpting is very much in line with the original Generation 1 toy and a little bit of the cartoon model as well. Sleeked down for modern aesthetics and lacking some of the gimmicks of the originals, so he looks a lot more solid. Blue is very dominant here, which is a little bit unexpected because of how much black was in his vehicle mode. Like I said, he makes a really good visual transformation by leaving all that on the back. And isn't that nice? He is so clean. There's, you know, a little chunk that is actually stuck on from the transformation, but that is it. Everything else is very polished, very put together, very solid. Really, really dig this. Paint is still kept to a minimum, as on most modern toys, though all of this turquoise is painted on, so he does have a hefty amount in the legs, a little bit on the pelvis, a little bit in the belly, and these inner silver details as well. He still leaves detailing to stickers like a lot of the leader toys do, so we have a Decepticon symbol there, which is over 3D parts. That's annoying. And then we have the ones here on the legs, replicating a little bit of his G1 detailing. Typically, I'm not a fan of the stickers on the Titan Master figures, and there's a few, like this one in particular, when you're handling the robot mode, that you might catch with the edge of your finger here and there. But for the most part, I don't mind it on him because it's detailing that's harkens back to his original G1 toy that we never got. So part of me kind of wants it to be as close as we can get it, even if that does mean putting up with some bad foil stickers. Overall, really dig this guy. I don't know what it is about putting all that white in the upper body that just works for me, but it kind of does. I don't know. It just, something about it makes him look really powerful. So what else can we do? Well, before we get into articulation, we're going to go ahead and show off that his chest no longer has space for Power Masters, or God Masters back then. They do have slots for a pair of Titan Masters. This is a little bit iffy. It's a little bit hard to get the Titan Masters out if they are the wrong type. There are a few that don't quite fit in there, which is why I'm not currently demonstrating. I'll go ahead and just use the one I have just to show, oh yes, he in fact can have a pair of heads for boobs. But that is it's a nice replacement, and there are some very funny things you can do with this, but if you get the wrong head, it is very difficult to actually get out of this compartment. I'm lucky that he has this big sharp chin that lets me pull him out fairly easily. So you have to be careful which ones you use. There are a few gaps that go all the way from front to back in him, just in case you do get stuck. You might be able to pry them loose, but it's a little bit of a cautionary tale. Try to look up which ones get stuck first before you start experimenting. Okay, so that out of the way, we do have an accessory count. He does get his traditional gigantic, I'm going with shield. This is a leftover from his G1 design of having that big jet nose cone just stuck to his arm. I'm assuming it's a shield of some kind because it doesn't look like an arm cannon. I will say that. Though also, if we want, we can go ahead and raise up the peg and install it to his chest as well. So he also has a little bit of armor should you want that. It's a very combiner-esque torso that you can create out of it. So it's an option. I like option. This is also where you can dismantle that just in case you think that looks better. Options. I will never complain about giving me more play options, even if it's not something I'm a particular fan of. In particular, I kind of like leaving it right where it is here. Though I will say there are 2 hinges in the shoulder. One of them does not like this. It does not. It's a little bit too heavy, but don't worry. He makes up for that. We'll get to that here in a minute. We'll go ahead and plug in his barrel from the tank mode as well. That gives him his gun. Now, proper articulation look. Let's see how he does. Head fully rotates. I'm very happy they figured out that this big helmet gimmick does actually work if they do it right. I'm glad they figured out by the time this release came along. Shoulders, they do have a hinge there, but they also have a hinge buried in the torso, which is far stiffer and gives you much more range of articulation, as well as something that can actually hold up that big shield without an issue. Biceps have full 360-degree rotation. We have full 90-degree bend at the elbow, nothing in the wrist. At the waist, well, nothing because of transformation. We do have universal hips that are very stiff on mine. Full thigh rotation, as well as a knee, not 90-degree because of the parts, but hey, you work with what you got. And a full ankle tilt inward, letting him be quite posable for his size. He does lack a few points that I find particularly interesting to have, waist joints for instance, but for the most part he manages a very articulate robot mode. Very, very cool poses are possible with him. That is Titan's Return Overlord. He is an exceptionally nice toy. I love the unique play value that the 2 vehicle modes give you, the combining transformation. It's a very simple toy to transform, but when you got 2 vehicles in one, I think it justifies. I think it's still really fun to transform because you're doing 2 completely different tasks in order to accomplish whichever mode you're going for. And I love how solid he is. He barely has any spots where you can see hollowed out plastic. This really, really good toy for his first US debut. Now, if we can get some of the victory leaders in here in this next toy line, I'll no longer have anything to complain about. Which is an utter lie, but I will be happy nonetheless.